How do you present our speaker? With the moderator, I'm your definition of the I'm doing Facebook testing. Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to. Hello, can you hear? I think we will start in like a few seconds. Yeah? So if everybody can take their seats. Yeah? So we are starting. Yes, please call everybody.
Or somebody take his position here. This is yours? Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry.
So can everybody take their seats? Yes. We will have to start now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's very nice. My colleague
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
The mic is not working.
Can you hear me?
It's hard for me to say because the speaker is
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here.
I'm sorry, we cannot hear because of the microphone doesn't have a high volume. So we will have to ask you to really keep silent because of the microphone capability. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lisa. So, thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's a great honor to me to be here with you, especially for this event on Romani Women's Future Forum. And hopefully it's going to be a very understanding process and continue in the future, because we really believe in that. So thank you so much, everyone. Since we have a very thick agenda and time is up, I would say I will not prolong my intervention. I'm happy to give the floor to Miss Mila Paspalanova from the Actual Commission for Human Rights. And it's a great pleasure to be here with you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Do I need a microphone for the recording?
Yes,
or I can,
yes,
okay, for the
yes.
recording, because I usually speak sufficiently loud. Well, thank you so much. Here,
Yes.
or it's not on? Like this?
Yes, that's
Yeah?
perfect.
Okay, perfect. So with many of you, we have shared already the space since the first day of the opening. Thank you, Ergo, for aiding us at the opening of this panel. And I will try not to repeat topics that we already covered since the beginning, but I just want to start with a question for those of us who were here since the beginning. In how many of the panel sessions in which we covered so many topics, we heard any of the panelists pointing or making any reference to women? And I remember in two of the panels we had this. Now,
No, before, which we was inside, they
there
speak
was,
about international discrimination from a woman.
and yesterday, yesterday we had one on housing, and in the rest, just now the last one, for example, on securitization, on the other topics that we had, the topic of gender, and not to enter also in gender diversity, is absent. And here I wanted to highlight with you, first and foremost, like the need to recognize that the situation of women within any population group, and particularly within Roma communities, is much more subjected to discrimination, violence, and we observe in these populations much lower implementation of their human rights. I have prepared over 8 pages of inputs from international standards that I will share through ISA, who asked me to cover with you briefly what is the international normative framework and what comes from the body of the treaty bodies and the special procedures on the situation of Romani women, because notoriously the topic is absent even from the spaces where we cover Romani issues. Okay? So, very briefly said, in all United Nations core treaties, we have 9. I will not enter in the details to bother you, but you have heard, for example, Convention on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, CEDAW, of course, I will not enter in your topic. In all the international treaties, we have specific references to the rights of women, specific references, for example, to topics such as trafficking of women, to which, for example, Roma women are much more exposed than any other population group. And this is something that we have to recognize. So this you will receive in a written form if you need a more solid grounds from what comes from the international normative framework, which is, as we always say, binding for all member states. Okay? Then I wanted to highlight just some of the recommendations and conclusions that come from the so-called mechanisms, special mechanisms that we have, special procedures of the United Nations, which are much more agile in addressing specific population or thematic issues. For example, we have the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women and Girls, who has specific references to many European countries. I will not single out here some of them, no? Not to seem that I'm making a biased presentation or criticism on certain countries, but violence, forced sterilization, trafficking, and early marriage affecting Roma women. So we have Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, and those recommendations are supposed to guide policy frameworks and to be implemented in the member states that have received those recommendations. Then we have Special Rapporteur on Minority Issues, which has produced the biggest body of evidence and recommendations specifically on Romani women, and he focuses mostly on exclusion, segregation, and intersectional discrimination. Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Racism is another mechanism that has examined also the majority of European member states, addresses anti-Roma racism, gender dimensions, and anti-Gypsyism against Roma women. Working Group on Discrimination of Women and Girls, another mechanism pointing at legal and structural discrimination and barriers that Roma women are facing. Special Rapporteur on Extreme Poverty and Human Rights, so I will not enter in more detail now. Then we have Special Rapporteur on the right to health, on the right to adequate housing, and on trafficking in persons. So this, I think we need to keep them on the forefront of our attention because they complement what is being done at EU level, at Commission level, and in the strategies. Usually these normative frameworks and these concluding recommendations from the special procedures, they fall out of the cracks. And when we link to the topic, for example, of data that we have been covering since the beginning of Roma Week, and we speak that there is no data, well, from here again, we have additional body of evidence on what's going on. And just to conclude, to pinpoint also on the importance of seeing what are the thematic recommendations emitted by treaty bodies to different member states. And we were giving, for example, cases of advancing the level of implementation of Roma rights in many EU member states, but then to see the more critical perspective of where exactly we are standing behind. We have, for example, evidence on the failure to recognize and address intersectionally in law and policy. Here is specifically in Czechia, the anti-discrimination legislation does not explicitly prohibit multiple forms of discrimination, leaving Roma behind and leaving Roma women behind. So there we lack even the normative framework that allows us to advance with the implementation of women's rights. One last thing, please allow me 1 minute. For the presentation, we were also speaking about good practices, ways to advance forward, and how to empower women. And what do we have from the UN system? And from the UN system, specific strategies for empowering women and examples from different countries have mainly been designed and implemented by UN Women. again, we can share with the colleagues some of those practices that have been implemented in Europe. We have Women Leadership Initiative led by my colleagues, implementing norms, changing minds. It's another UN Women Initiative. The Just Roma program, intersectional policies approaches also of UN Women. But then we were speaking yesterday, we don't have evidence of what is the sustainability, like also with the housing strategy, what is the sustainability of those programs? And I will speak between institutionally, but also personally. When we speak about resilience and empowerment of women, we should always remember, yes, we need to be resilient because otherwise we cannot survive. But it's the state that has to fulfill their obligations to protect and implement human rights. And women are tired of being resilient and empowered. No? So I would really caution us against taking the path of how to become more resilient and how much more empowered we need to be when the responsibility stays on the other side of the field. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mila, for your very comprehensive intervention, also for this overview. And I think it's very important to always start by thinking about the international law, because ultimately, you mentioned, it's binding for the UN membership at the end of the day. And within this framework, allow me also to mention the importance of the Universal Periodic Review.
Yes.
Because also the Universal Periodic Review allows to make a monitoring, constant monitoring of the improvement in each country, and also to promote, of course, the values, the principle of the conventions, the work of the special rapporteur, and so on and so forth. And thank you so much for these opening remarks, which are very enlightening. And now I would like to start with panel one.
Let me make space.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. From here. And Maja,
And the open Yeah. So you want to say, okay. Okay.
Second.
In the second one, yeah. Okay. If you want. Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, then, okay, it's easier. Sorry, because I'm just here. Sorry for this housekeeping rule, moving around. And so here we are, I think we are ready, steady.
The spice is little, but we are
here ready. So, Daniela, okay, is visible? Okay. So first and foremost, thank you again for being here with us. And now let me start by opening the panel number one, Voices of Today, Futures of Tomorrow, which is absolutely the basis for the forum Future in the Future. And allow me to introduce first and foremost the panelists for this moment. So on my left side, Ms. Saška Jovanović from ROMNI APS, co-founder and co-organizer of this event. Mihailova from L.I.D.E.R, Bulgaria. And with pleasure, Daniela, Ionita from Italy, not from Romania, but from Italy. And then
Also from Romania.
and then Anca, Enache from Finland, and then we will have the opportunity also to hear Concetta from Italy via video. And so for this panel, which is really focused on Roma women, the idea is to pose two questions. So I can remind you that we are lacking of time, we are short of time. And so the idea is to pose the first question, so 3 minutes each, please. What's the situation of Roma women and girls in your respective countries? And can you identify the structural barriers according to your experience? So the floor is yours. You can start.
Okay, I will start, and I will read to have 3 minutes because it's very difficult if I start to speak. The first, I'm so happy for today that I see you in like this big number. Thank you that you come, that you respect us, all our Roma women organization. And we have also two organizations who is pro-Roma, it's Institute Helsinki, the Konski, who support us these last 7-8 years. I'm so grateful to them that they believe to us, Little Roma Women Organization. And also we have another task, Renato today present, who is also high school from Croatia, who also believe in us and give us possibility to participate with them like partner in EU project. This is very, very important that they believe to us. Maja, thank you for this question. From our experience, like ROMNI RPS, the situation of Roma women and girls is still very difficult because the barriers they face are not individual problems, they are structural barriers. For example, when we speak about education, the problem starts very early. Many Roma children do not attend preschool regularly, and this already puts them in weaker position before they even enter in primary school. Later in school, many Roma children, especially girls, face discrimination, exclusion, and bullying. Because of this, many of them no longer want to go to school, even when their parents are really trying, insisting that they continue. So it is important today to say clearly, the problem is not Roma families do not care about education. Very often they do care, but the system does not create a safe and supportive space for their children. When we speak about employment, discrimination also starts immediately. Many Roma women do not even get a chance to prove themselves. Sometimes their CV is rejected because of surname that sounds typically Roma or Sinti, or because of the address when they live. So discrimination begins even before the interview, before any really opportunity is given. The same happens in healthcare and in institutions. Roma women often face prejudice, mistrust, and equal treatment when they try to access services. But I also want to say very clearly that the problem is not only individual. Even we, as Roma NGO, often face institutions that do not want to cooperate with us, that do not take Roma organizations seriously, and that do not want to support our EU project. This shows that the barrier is not only social, it is also institutional. And for me, one of the most important issues is a political participation. Roma women are still missing from institutions and from really decision-making spaces. And even when a Roma woman is placed in political list, very often she's treated there only to complete the list, to be at the bottom or to attract votes, not to have really position, really power or really influence. This is not really representation. So if we want to speak honestly, Roma women and girls do not lack strength, talent or will. What they face is a system that still denies them equal accesses, equal respect, and equal opportunity. And this is exactly what we must keep speaking, not only about inclusion, but about real participation, real recognition, and real power for Roma women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, because you're always striking with your words and you go straight to the point, and unfortunately you emphasize exactly all the existing problems. We had a variety of layers affecting, I would say, at the end of the day, the whole society, because when we talk about Roma women, we are talking about all of us, ourselves. And I think that's also another issue to be emphasized. Thank you so much. So, and also because you stay in 3 minutes, you're perfect. Thank you so much. So now I give the floor very quickly to Mihailova from L.I.D.E.R Bulgaria, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for the possibility to be here. Thank you very much to all of you for the interest of Roma women topic, and welcome to everybody who are looking us online. Thank you for the possibility that we can reach more people to be part of the session today. When we speak about Roma women, almost the thing in whole Europe are equally and the same problems always. But personally, because I come from Bulgaria and many years worked on the field of local level, but also regional and national level, I have almost the picture from these three very important, layers, how the policy, go and affect simple, ordinary people. And because of that, I want to start with one, a very simple idea. When we talk about Roma women and girls in Bulgaria, I think that it's very important to start with this very simple idea, which I want to share with you. Those challenges are not only about one group, they are about how the system works and who they reach actually. At the same, when we target especially Roma women and girls for this forum, when we speak, we have to say that very clear that Roma women face a very complex situation because they are affected not only of poverty and exclusion, but they are also very much affected by their ethnicity and gender. And we know this on our personality as well, but also because of our mother, our sister, our daughter. And Roma women face more complex situation, and they are affected not only by this poverty and exclusion. And I will give you very short data for Bulgaria. More than 60% of Roma women, of Roma people in Bulgaria are at risk of poverty. Almost half of Roma women do not complete basic education. Employment among Roma women are much lower than the national average. Why this number is important? This number is important to show something very deeper, that the system we have do not reach everyone in the same way. About the structural barrier, I will be very short. Maybe I will repeat Saška. First of all, about the institutional level. This barrier have to be, I want to say that very clearly in education. Many of Roma children still study in separate environment. That we have to say very clear. And we know this, each of us work in this area. Many girls leave the school very early. Access to the healthcare, also it's very difficult, especially we can say about the prevention. In our country, we don't have any policy about the prevention. Our policy in healthcare in Bulgaria work for, to heal people, but not to prevent actually. And about social service, often exist, but they do not always reach people in the neighborhood when they are most needed actually. So systems exist, but they do not work equally for everyone. About the economic barrier, which I think that is very important, many Roma women are not part of the formal labor market. Some work as in informal job, and very often they are very dependent of their family member. This creates a situation where independence is limited, and without economic independence, real choice is very limited as well. And when choice is limited, let's go that participation also is limited. So the third group of the barriers is social barrier. Early marriages, we still have this problem in our community. Early school dropout, limited role model. Roma girl grow up in a very complex environment as well. They grow between two pressures. One pressure inside because of the expectation of their family, but also outside the stigma which they have for generally for Roma population. Okay, this affects how they see their future. And here is my key message that those challenges are very often described as a Roma issue. Sorry, that's not Roma issue. That's Bulgarian issue. That's issue of Bulgarian national state country and their policy of implementation, because access to public service, access to opportunity, access to participation, this is about how the policy and institution function for people, first of all Roma people and Roma women, especially with more complex issue which I point. So one closing remarks, please. So if you look at the situation overall, the barrier is not isolated. Roma women, they are stronger. For Roma women, they are stronger and more complex. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miglena, also for emphasizing the importance of developing, because I think that's the reality. We are still in the process of developing this approach. We are not yet there, so that's the problem. That's one of the problems. The fact that, of course, there isn't an overall vision. We still continue to talk about minority and then the majority, and then, as you said, it's how policy affects everyone. So I think that's really at the core of the issue. Thank you so much. So thank you for your intervention. Now I give the floor to Daniela Ionita from Romania and Italy. Thank you, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm also representing a new Roma youth-led organization that is E-Romnja in Italy. And thank you so much for Saška for inviting me and for all of you for being here. I'll try to be fast and adding some more points. So yes, in Italy, the situation of Roma women and girls is deeply shaped by a long-standing negative social and cultural perception, because the figure of the ROMNI has historically been constructed through stereotypes, first sexualized and exoticized, and progressively erased from public memory after the World War II. This erasure has also occurred within communities themselves, where, due to fear of discrimination, many families stopped transmitting language, culture, and ethnic identity. Today, Roma women are still largely represented in media and public discourse through stigmatizing narratives, as criminals, as unfit mothers, or solely as victims of violence. These representations are not neutral. They have concrete policy consequences in Italy. Over the years, security-driven approaches adopted by governments, not just from right wing, but also from left wing across, so the political spectrum, have reinforced control rather than inclusion, sometimes even leading to highly intrusive interventions in family life, including the rapid removal of children from Roma families. And one of the most significant structural barriers, in my opinion, is discrimination in access to basic rights. Many Roma women in Italy feel compelled to hide, as Saška already said, their ethnic identity in order to access employment, education, and social spaces. The situation is further complicated by socioeconomic vulnerability, especially among those Roma women from more recent migration flows from the Balkans, Romania, and Bulgaria, and many live in precarious housing conditions, including informal settlements or marginalized public housing, particularly in regions such as Lazio and Campania, we know them. And here the ethnic discrimination intersects with gender, migration, inequality, and poverty. At the same time, there is a lack of institutional capacity. We already say that. Public services often don't have the cultural competence or tools needed to effectively support Roma women, leading to inadequate or even harmful interventions. European and national data often fail to capture the diversity within Roma communities in Italy, overlooking the differences between those who are fully accepted by society and those living in marginalization. In summary, the majority of Roma women in Italy are unrepresented, unheard, and systematically excluded from spaces where decisions about their lives are made. So this is why Saška and ROMNI since a lot of years, they are making the difference in Italy and in the representation of a new way of perceiving Roma women. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much also for, since I'm Italian, of course, I totally agree and share absolutely your point of view. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true, absolutely. And also because we're used to saying in the past and it's still valid today, when we talk about access to justice, here it's lack of access to justice, where justice means also access to basic human rights services. So that's also another issue to be emphasized. Thank you so much. And so we are also on time. And absolutely. And for the first question, and I would like also to give the floor to Anca and Enache from Finland. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And a privilege and responsibility to be here from the Diakonis Foundation. So we have been working with colleagues from Bulgaria, Italy, and Croatia. And I'm happy to bring some of the messages of the young girls that we have been working with. And they have been doing this work in Finland, but unfortunately cannot be here today. But definitely I must relate to my colleague in Italy and say that the situation of Roma women, and particularly if we think about Roma girls, are shaped by structural anti-Gypsy and historical discrimination that has affected Roma in Finland. And similarly, politics of securization, ethnic profiling, which persists also nowadays. There has been just recently, a few years ago, a case in relation to the Finnish National Board of Police and Ethnic Discrimination against Roma, Finnish Roma families. And in Finland, we have been working both with Finnish Roma and also with migrant Roma, and also in this case, of course, the gender lens, but also migration lens, and deprival from citizenship and residency rights adds to the issue. And of course, we all here know that, like one of the Roma girls said, we want to be taken seriously. Young Roma girls have a lot of talent and a lot to give and want to give. But definitely they see that there are little possibilities. So if we think about involvement with policy making, actually we are discussing now in Finland on how to shape the processes and mechanisms that exist so that new generation is more represented. But there are not yet concrete results in this area. So that's one thing, how young a woman can be more represented in the existing structures, and of course creating new structures. And the other thing is that other youth movements and decision-making structures do not involve Roma women and Roma young people particularly. One important thing we hear from our young people, hate speech is increasing. Also, the pandemic had a disproportionate effect. So we had some progress in regards to education and employment, but now all this progress is very much affected. Of course, education systems imply a lot of structural discrimination, and there's a lot to be done in that area. And for that, safe spaces and mentorship and what we managed to do in this project are very important. There is also a good initiative, actually one entity which is part of us, the Diaconia University, has developed this targeted measure for inclusion in higher education. This is a new thing in Finland, not a new thing in many European countries, but Finland refused to believe that targeted measures are good in education, but this shows now good results. Thank you.
Just to say thank you so much to Anca because she anticipated actually the second question of the panel.
Yes, yes.
So we can reverse the order. But first the video. Of
Can I
course,
tell something?
Sure. Absolutely.
Now we will see the video, one short video from one of the mentor from our project ROMNI. But this girl is my friend, my colleague. She's fantastic. She don't come never in this meeting because she don't speak English, and I'm so angry. But she's really very big activist, Roma girl activist. And I don't know what to tell you. I tell you that she and me, we construct ROMNI network. It's 12 years that we, work with this network. Many times we organize very big conference with our money, and I'm very proud. And also thanks to Daniela for these words. But I'm sorry that we are till now only one Roma woman organization in Italy. I hope that we can be more because we need more Roma woman organization, and I'm so happy that we have some young Roma youth organization like Romani who start to exist. This is very important for us to be bigger. Sorry, I need to take it. Sì, aspetta, devo fare così. Ok, sorry.
Tutti sono saracetti, mentore del progetto ROMNI. Ho avuto il privilegio di lavorare con ragazze Roma straordinarie, piene di talento e determinazione. Il mio consiglio ai partner di ROMNI è continuare ad ascoltare davvero le ragazze, creare spazi sicuri dove possono esprimere i loro sogni senza paura del giudizio. Siate costanti nella presenza e celebrate ogni piccolo successo insieme a loro. L'educazione è un ponte, ma non solo relazioni autentiche che le rendono solide. E a voi ragazze che partecipate a questo progetto in tutta Europa, voi siete il cambiamento che il mondo aspetta. La vostra voce, la vostra storia, il vostro coraggio contano. Non lasciate che nessuno vi dica che non potete farcela. Continuate a studiare, a sognare, a lottare per i vostri diritti. Insieme possiamo costruire un futuro di vera inclusione. Non siete soli in questo percorso.
Grazie a Concetta per il suo impegno, che magari non è visibile, spero che in futuro sarà più visibile, che avremo opportunità. Oh, sorry, I started speaking Italian, sorry. Oh, no. No, I thanks to my friend. I love you, Concetta. I don't know. She tell me that you can say hello officially. I say hello officially. Please, Maja.
Thank you so much. So thanks a lot. And also thanks to Concetta who is with us, even though she's not here in person. Second question of the panel number one. So what's your vision for the future? And what are the priority areas for policy action? In particular, sub-question, how to promote mentoring and leadership among Roma women and girls. So we can reverse the order, Anca, if you want to start, because I think that you continue and we're up to the point. Thank you.
Yes, so I think we discussed a bit that there are international human rights instruments at the national level. We have the Roma strategies, and also we have local plans in Finland. So, of course, there is room to improve also in there how much Roma women and girls issues are underlined. But even more, there is need for actions to actually implement these policies. So what we see is that there is too little concrete action. And civil society, for example, now in Finland, there are lots of cuts. affecting civil society actors. So Roma organizations will be very affected and are already affected. And what Saška mentioned, actually, we have my colleague here, Tula, she's representing the Roma women organization of Finland, but there are very little such organization. But yeah, implementation of policies and possibilities to work at the grassroots level to really create spaces where Roma women and girls can meet, can plan their actions and influence politics. There is little support for that in reality at the local level.
Thank you so much. So let's give the floor to Daniela. Yeah.
I will try to be very fast. So yeah, for the first key priority, in my opinion, in Italy is the formal recognition of Roma communities as linguistic and cultural minority in Italy. We're asking this since ages, but it's not happening. This would represent a crucial step toward combating anti-Gypsyism and ensuring the protection and promotion of Roma identity and Roma justice. And the second, equal access to education and employment must be guaranteed, and this includes tackling discrimination in schools and the labor market, and creating targeted pathways to support the autonomy and long-term participation of Roma women and girls. And of course, promoting mentoring and leadership is also essential. Maybe Saška will say more about it. This means investing in networks of Roma women, supporting Roma lead organizations, and creating opportunities for young Roma women to develop leadership skills and actively participate in decision-making processes. And these, of course, initiatives must be community-led and not externally imposed. And unfortunately, in Italy, this is still happening. Not Roma organization taking space, too much voice, and creating too many issues to the Roma community. And it's not time anymore for this organization, right? And another priority is adopting a truly intersectional approach within public services, especially in social services, and gender-based violence support systems too. This requires better training, the inclusion of Roma cultural mediators, and the development of approaches that are supportive rather than, again, paternalistic, white savioristic, and overly controlling. And housing policies must also move beyond segregation. The system of informal settlements and camps must be replaced with inclusive housing strategies that support access to dignified and independent living conditions, accompanied by social and economic support, especially for Roma women. And finally, there is a need to transform public narratives and improve data collection. Policies must recognize the diversity within Roma communities in Italy and avoid one-dimensional representations. And yeah,
Thank
the
you,
vision.
Daniela. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're sorry. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you so much, and the floor now is for Miglena.
I will try to be very short.
I will be long.
If we think in that way, if we accept that the problem is not only lack of the policy, but how they are implemented, then the solution is not simply more program. The solution is better targeted, more consistent, and more inclusive policies, because policy have to reach people in their daily life. That's the core idea of the policy. So about the priority, like education, first of all, let's say, I think that this is the core. Targeting and support Roma girl, work with family and long-term engagement, because education should not stop only on the assess. Long years we speak about assess of Roma children in the school, but I think that it's time we to start to speak about the development, and it should lead to real development. Regarding to the economic independence, Income change power. I think that it's relevant and each of us know of this. If change how women see them in their family, in their community, but here it's also one very important thing. Economic independence give to them voice. About the third priority, representation, I think that participating in the decision making and priorities is that which give perspective of Roma women and Roma people, which is very often missing in decision making and policy representation. About the mentoring and leadership, we have very unique, actually, how to say, story from a women movement. Right now, we can see very strong women, but they're very often individual success story. Each of us, fight without any support, and somehow, because of our personality, our character, but actually we don't have system which support next generation. That is still needed system. And for me, what is important is that such kind of mentoring program, connection between youth and role models, long-term support, and some other kind of intervention with support consists leadership building, will give a chance to next generation. Okay. And final. So in the end, the question is not only what kind of policy we have, but the question actually is, do this policy really reach people? And do they include them in a shaping of the solution? Because the difference between inclusion and participation is the difference between formal and real democracy.
Thank you so much, Miglena. So, thank you everyone. Thank you so much. I'll ask Saška just to sum up.
It's not
very
easy to be
yeah.
quickly because we start very late and we have
Yeah.
so little time,
2
but
minutes.
it's very difficult to have. I respect everybody, but because of this, we don't want to make third panel to have the time enough for second panel to respect the time. I want only to say yes that when we speak about the future Roma women girls, we don't speak about policies. We speak about dignity and freedom, and about the right that every girl grow up believing that her life can be bigger than the limits that society tries to place on her. That Roma women are seen, heard, respected, and present where decisions are made in the future. That we don't need like this very, very short discussion because we can do nothing, but we need serious long-term policy action. That I'm very happy that we're doing this ROMNI project because maybe somebody is not clear. In this project we have mentor, but this mentor work free for us. What does this mean? That everybody from you can be tomorrow mentor to another, and thanks to this mentorship, for example, our girls in ECRI, now they can go out from the house without be accompanied, without have another person. And they can go, they can travel, they can visit another city, another conference, etc. For somebody, it's small things, nothing. For us, it's big things, because this is empowerment in realistic life. In realistic life, these mentors is not only to give them advice. These mentors open the door, because they can open the door where some Roma women can doing these things. And this is also important. And what is also important, that continue with it, not to finish project today, 2 years, like we finish, and tomorrow we can do nothing. Because 2 years we give to this girl, we listen them, we give them everything, and then we disappear. It's not good. I'm very happy that we have now Digify Media, that now in this project, which we also have like coordinator Institute Helsinki, it's not only that come young girl, now they believe in us and they bring their mother, their cousins, to listen, to be empowered, to read, to listen, to learn some new things. And this is the important things, to have continued, not to finish when the project is finished. And the last thing, network. What is important network? Not network for Roma organization, no. Network Roma and not Roma organization. I'm very happy that we're dealing now one project with ERGO, National Coalition. Why? Because thanks to this project, we make work with Roma and not Roma organization leaders, activists, everybody who loves and who wants to be with us. And tomorrow, when we don't have money to pay the space to organize like event like this, or to have some safe space for our girls, thanks to this coalition, we'll ask another organization to give hospital to help us. And this is the thing. This is for me a resolution to make network Roma and not Roma.
I want to thank you. Thank you so much, Saška. Thank you all the time for also the recommendation and suggestion. And I think that ultimately it's important to ensure also systematic human rights education at the basis of all these consideration and remarks, because there is a lack of human rights education. This is also another element to be considered. Thank you.
Okay, we can change.
Thanks.
Isabella, can you give me?
You can take away this mic. Can you just throw them in here without? Thank you. I'm sorry, I've lost the whole row with this.
So do you still want to say something?
Yeah, we're going to follow what is the thing. So it's you first, and but I will just try if you can still sum up in about 5 minutes, and then if you have something to say for the remaining, we can go for our round. Okay, I have the Russian, so they have two. Okay, no worries. So let's try to. Okay.
Where would you like to be sitting?
I can sit here. Anywhere.
Can I take this one?
Or it's.
Is it?
It's yours.
I think it's Mihailova. I think it's Mihailova.
It's okay.
You can. Okay.
No, but because it's a bit, yeah, no, sorry, Robert. So, I hope you can hear me all. I would like to ask for your attention. I know that we are late. I know that you're so impatient, but let's just also honor the last panel for this morning. My name is Robert, and I'm working at the Secretariat of the European Commission against racism and intolerance. So we're moving to the panel that is named as What Does Real Investment in Roma Women and Girls Look Like? So this discussion invites us to move from general commitments to more practical questions, I guess. When we speak of investing in Roma women and girls, what do we usually mean in practice? Are we speaking only about funding? Are we also speaking about participation, access, trust, representation, safety, and long-term structural changes? We have three panelists with us today, bringing perspective from local governance, civil society, and independent and international policy. I hope this conversation will help us think not only about what is needed, but also about what effective, credible, and sustained investment should look like in practice. Let me briefly introduce our speakers. So, Löfstrand, sorry for the pronunciation, member of the Östersund Municipal Council of Sweden from Renew Europe and member of the European Committee of the Regions, Carmen Gheorghe from E-Romnja, Romania, and Vishnja Bacanovic, I hope the soft chair is there, a regional gender and good governance specialist, UN Women. To begin, I would like to invite each speaker to reflect on the same central question. What does real investment in Roma women and girls look like from your perspective?
Thank you very much. I can stand up so everyone sees me. Hello. My name is Löfstrand, and I come to this discussion from several perspectives. I'm politically active at the local level in Sweden, formerly as a deputy mayor of the municipality of Östersund, where I work closely with the realities faced by communities on the ground. I also serve as a member of the European Committee of the Regions, where I am, among other people, responsible as a rapporteur for the EU anti-racism strategy. And I speak from the perspective of the political group of Renew Europe, which represents a liberal and centrist political perspective. But alongside my political work, I am also a researcher in psychology, and I am active in the executive committee of the European Association of Work and Organizational Psychology, where I collaborate with leading experts, including Professor Eva de Roo, my expert for the anti-racist work, who is here with me today, and she works at Ghent University. And in my academic work, I studied stereotypes in different situations and how it can affect the discrimination and so on. So that's an important mix from the local perspective, the strategic perspective, and from the academic perspective. But mostly today, I'm speaking from a regional and local perspective, from Jämtland in Sweden, up north. I would like to start with a simple message. Real investment in Roma women and girls only becomes real when it reaches the local level and when it is sustained over time. In Sweden, when we talk about Roma rights, we cannot ignore the legacy of the sisters Katarina and Rosa Taiko. They fought for something very concrete, the right to education, to housing, and to dignity. But what their legacy teaches us is this: rights only matter when they are delivered in practice by local institutions in everyday life, and that is where cities and regions come in. At the same time, across Europe, we still see a structural gap between commitments and reality. According to the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights, up to 80% of Roma in some member states are at risk of poverty. Roma women face significantly lower employment rates and continued discrimination. This is not new. We know this. The European Commission's Anti-Racism Action Plan and the EU Roma Strategic Framework both recognize that anti-Gypsyism is structural. But from our perspective, the challenge is clear. We are still too focused on strategies and not enough on implementation, because anti-racism is not implemented in Brussels. It's implemented in our schools, our healthcare systems, our housing policies, and our local labor markets. And here, we need to be honest. Local and regional authorities are often expected to deliver results without the necessary tools, funding, or flexibility. This is why the European Committee of the Regions has been clear. Commitments on equality, inclusion, and Roma participation must be renewed and strengthened at all levels. We also call on the European Commission to monitor progress closely, enforce EU legislation, and act where member states fall behind, because without accountability, progress will remain too slow. So, what does real investment actually look like? It means investing in capabilities, education that opens real choices, and addressing the high number of Roma girls outside education or training. And it means economic empowerment, turning employment into a pathway to independence. And it means scaling what works, supporting Roma women as mediators, mentors, and professionals who build trust. It means real participation, Roma women as decision makers, not just beneficiaries. And it means long-term funding and enforcement, because structural discrimination cannot be solved with short-term projects. And finally, real investment must be measured by long-term impact, not projects, but real change in people's lives. So let me be clear. If a Roma girl still feels excluded from school, if a Roma woman cannot access decent work, if discrimination continues in everyday life, then we are not lacking knowledge. We are lacking implementation and political will. So we need to renew our strategies, and we need to work more at the local level, and we have to give support. And we have good examples around in Europe with in different cities. Yesterday we had a prize ceremony for cities working with inclusion and diversity, and the city of Josepharos in Budapest, they got the gold medal, and they have a really developed program for working with Roma rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the takeover from your speech is that to focus on strategies and not enough on implementation. Commitments must be renewed and strengthened. We should invest in education, economic empowerment, supporting Roma women in all walks of our lives, especially women seen as being decision makers, long-term fundings, and thing that we should improve among many others is the lack of implementation and political will.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
So Carmen, we go with you now.
Thank you. As a Roma feminist organization, we are facing various oppressions and inequalities in our societies and communities. And I think my colleagues in the previous panel have already talked about it. I will not insist on it. I would just say that imagine that there is such a wide diversity of issues, right, as well as among us from different states, but also within one community. So for us, it's not a choice to pick one issue and start, working on it, right? That's why we developed in E-Romnja an intersectional perspective, looking about both at how the systems are working, right, and also how identities of Roma women, because we work with women from different religions, classes, sexual identity, racialized women, poor women. So how do these women interact with the system, and when is it actually, about the system where it fails? And I think that it is essential for institutions, but also for Roma and Gheorghe organizations to have an intersectional perspective, to look at all these issues and not picking one which is sometimes maybe more easy or something that it has been addressed. Because as I said before, you cannot choose, and these are issues that Roma women are dealing all the time. In terms of investment, because we are lacking policy, we are lacking intersectionality in policies, in institutional framework, in practice, etc., but also in the civil society. So having in mind all this, when I'm thinking of how do we invest in Roma women, I would start by saying that we need funding for grassroots organization. You would be surprised to see that many Roma women are very well connected to the local level, to local issues, politicians, and local policies. So if you give them the chance to get involved in this type of work, you don't send a message to communities and institutions. You send a message to them as women and girls that they can do more of this, and they can have autonomy and be involved in the decision making. And then related to why do we have to invest to fund grassroots work? It's also that we need to decentralize the power between big international organizations and small grassroots organizations, right? Because it's such a big discrepancy between these two. This has to change at some point. And last, it's also about being trying at least not to be tokenized by local and national and international actors when we have the power at the grassroots level and the funds to do the work that we do in our own way, right? This would be the first. Now, the second, because of course everybody talks a lot about education and the need to invest in education. I think at least for Roma policy, there has been a lot of discussion about this and maybe the most investment in this. But the problem is, if we look at the education from the gender neutral perspective, actually, we are denying the experiences of boys and girls since very early stages, right? And this is like a big issue because actually we have to address issues like bullying, sexual harassment, gender-based violence, lack of consent, but all these topics we have to address, of course, adapted to the language and to the age of children. But we have to make sure that we are nurturing empathy, love, and respect since early stages. And this, if we don't invest in education from this point of view, but also looking at the disaggregated data, because there is a big discussion about how we collect data. And it's not just about the statistic, it's also about the empirical data that we also need to understand why do Roma girls and boys abandon school? Why do they lack professional qualification? What is happening? And because all these, would improve their autonomy on body, on sexuality, on financial aspect, etc., etc. Third, I will try to finish fast, sorry. Third is, of course, everybody talks about law and policies that needs to be better. We have nowadays a lot of framework on different topics, but again, they are not intersectional. And intersectionality is not a framework, it's not a theoretical framework. It was not developed just to have public statements and declaration and to value our identities. It was designed really not to exclude the most marginalized. If policies are designed so that the most marginalized, stigmatized, poor people, not just Roma, but also other groups, right? Like LGBTQI+, like racialized people in Europe, if we will design policies based on these groups, we will actually make sure that us, the rest, we have access, right? We have to just shift the perspective from those very marginalized to the rest of society and not different. And also when we talk about policies, we have to look, because nowadays we have directive on gender-based violence, which states for the first time in a mandatory way that intersectionality needs to be in place in different countries. But the biggest gatekeepers of law and policies are not Roma or other groups, are actually the states, the governments, who refuse to be specific within their work. And this is how, again, they fail to address the most marginalized people in our society and not to bring access to them. My last point is about how, because we talk about investment in all these topics in future, but I think as civil society, we have also to develop more strategic solidarity, political solidarity with other groups, with other movements, racialized people in Europe, LGBTQI in Europe, feminist movement. It is not a time to be alone in our issues and compare and, think who is the most oppressed, but it is time to build this type of solidarity, because history has taught us, if we want to look at it, that if today one's group, human rights are denied, slowly, step by step, all our different human rights for different groups are being of threat. So from this point of view, I think intersecting more and more and building this type of coalition will ensure us that, especially in this current situation where we have far-right groups and all these situations, right, and militarization, we have to look to how we can build more solidarity among us and how we can get support from the government and for this type of work that we do. Thank you.
Can I tell something? Sorry. Can I tell something? I agree with Carmen. In fact, is that I support you and I follow you so many years, and I'm your supporter. And in this national coalition, which we make it now, is intersectional coalition, because we have LGBT, we have one big federation for invalid person with problem, very grave. and Roma, not Roma. And I'm agree with you, and we dealing in this way like you tell now. Thank you.
Thank you, Saška. So what I can just say as a takeover from what Carmen said, so what is essential for institutions and for everyone is to actually include the intersectional perspective. So there is a clearly lack of intersectional perspective, funding for grassroots organizations, and need for power decentralization. And one which is extremely important, and I think that it's very rare that I hear, and that is a strategy and political solidarity with other groups. I think this is something that we should really invest in. And 10 years ago, I have actually published an article that was entitled as Why Martin Luther King Matters European Roma. It was published in America, and the idea was actually to see whether the Black American movement will in a way approach us and build a coalition so that actually we can exchange some ideas and learn also from them, from their movement in America. So thank you very much for bringing this idea. And last but not least, Vishnya, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It is really not easy to speak after women and all other speakers today. So I just want maybe to emphasize that women are the biggest revolution, and we know that. And today we also have seen how important it is for us to invest in Roma women activists. So this is the main point that I wanted to make today, because we have today with us true heroes, like not heroes, but heroes, because in their lived experiences, they each and every of them basically challenged norms, overcome immense obstacles in their lives, and also reshape their own communities. So this is what we see everywhere, that Roma women activists are changing their communities. And you don't have any investment similar to that creates this kind of support for children, for other girls and women in settlements, in societies. So strengthening activists, individuals, is equally important as supporting organizations who are providing services, who are, of course, there to support communities. And we do have examples of Roma women's organizations who are supporting women in situation of violence, providing life-saving services. But this kind of creating social capital within community is something that is really important for change. So I'm really honored to be today on behalf of UN Women, and I'm happy to have this souvenir from Moldova 2 weeks ago, where we had a Roma Women's March, because our office there is also supporting movement in Moldova, and we have first ever, I think, women in local council who is Roma. So my another point today is that, and also what we heard already, is that we need to support women, Roma women, in decision-making processes. And this is something that is on UN Women's agenda very strongly for 2026-2027, especially to bring Roma women from the region, from the accession countries, to participate in this process of EU accession that we do see as a very important platform to leverage gender equality agenda, but also intersectional agenda in the region. And speaking of investments, it will be interesting to see how many of actions we do have in growth and reform agendas in Western Balkans that are addressing Roma women or Roma communities in general. So this kind of gender mainstreaming or intersectional mainstreaming is something that we are also doing, because as intergovernmental organization, UN Women is working with governments, but our role is to bring women's voices to the spheres of decision making. And this is something that we are doing for 15 years now, since Young Women was created. Basically, what is also important, and I will finish there, is to remind all of us to general recommendations of CEDAW committee related to targeted measures. You mentioned that governments are not always fully open for that, and society is not always fully open to that, but it is very important for us to use international framework that we have, and the CEDAW committee in concluding remarks always mention Roma women to many of countries, Slovakia, Serbia, of course, Western Balkan countries, other countries. So we should use these mechanisms, and we also do have some compensations for Roma women for direct discrimination they face. But we know like health, education, employment, protection of violence, all of that, but we need to bring Roma women in decision-making spaces, reshape power dynamics.
Wow.
And this is what we need today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that for many, many years, Roma women were the changing will in the communities. So, and most of the changes were actually brought by Roma women in the community. So it is something that we should definitely continue supporting. So the three takeaways from your, or four from your presentation is that we need to strengthen activists and individuals, likewise NGOs. So create the social capacity for change in the communities, supporting Roma women in decision-making process, and last but not least, gender mainstreaming.
Intersectional.
And intersectional, gender intersectional mainstreaming. So we have around 5 more minutes, and I would like to ask if there is anyone in the audience that have an urgent or burning question that would like to ask. No? So everyone is hungry?
That's the burning need, indeed.
Well, I have actually one question for Carmen. So a very short. What does a gender-sensitive approach add to Roma inclusion policies, and why it is necessary? What does a gender-sensitive approach add to Roma inclusion policies, and why is it necessary?
I feel like that's a tricky question.
Yeah, I know.
Many gender-sensitive strategies for, especially for Roma. I know the Romanian context and also the southeastern countries, but I've been following what is happening also in other Western countries, so I'm not really sure that it's really there, the gender perspective, which doesn't mean necessarily that you have women at the table and then you are checking some boxes and let's say you have the gender. And it also doesn't mean that if you put inside protection against gender-based violence and encouragement for Roma women to access healthcare and to be health mediators and school mediators, it means that you have a gender perspective. It's not. Women have to be in all phases, from culture, justice, injustice, social inclusion, politics, etc., which unfortunately doesn't happen. I'm optimistic. I'm an activist. I hope that one day it will happen. Many of us in many countries, because I'm not the only one who is always raising this question. But I think also it has to be a good criticism, constructive, and also people have to be very open about this and to have more allies from all parties, so that we understand that we are not here, as my colleague from Italy was saying earlier, very nice, that we don't want to be pat on our head and with the patronizing attitude to be encouraged, but we want to be there because it is our right to be there, and we have so much expertise that we have accumulated in these years, and this is something that is valuable. But probably one day we will go a bit beyond the public declaration, the public statements, and really have political will and civic engagement, for real consultation, and for really women engagement.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to all our panelists. So what we heard today actually makes clear that the real investment in Roma women and girls is not only about allocating resources. It is also about power, participation, continuity, accountability, and the willingness to listen to lived experience. If investment is to be meaningful, it must be shaped with Roma women, not simply directed at them. And if it's to be effective, it must lead to tangible change in people's life. So thank you all for your insights, and also thank for the audience for the attention. And now we are moving to the lunch break. Thank you very much.
I want to ask if it's possible.
So without,
Can you tell please if it's possible to make one photo together?
But I will prepare the report and add that